There he is. All right, Greg Paul. Let me just fix your mic a little bit there. Perfect.
I don't think I have. Oh, there we go. We got sound. Very good.
Yeah, now
All
it's
right.
at the right angle.
Yep.
So welcome to IBC.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
We're going to take you guys through a really cool presentation from Greg Paul Malone. He's based in Los Angeles.
Yep.
He's brought some really cool examples, and this is what I like to call like a flame masterclass. This isn't just the typical breakdown, show somebody how something was done. It's actually it's where we get to learn a lot about some interesting techniques that you've developed with some colleagues.
For sure.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, so we get an idea of what you're all about.
So I've been freelancing on Flame full time for 17 years in LA and around the world, a few places. And started on a Flint back in Dallas, studying the manual at like 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to find out what a mat was, what a definition of a mat was.
That's great. So
anyway,
you're self-taught.
Yeah, pretty much. And from other really good artists that helped a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you're teaching, you're giving back, right?
Try,
so you're going to sort of show some of your techniques. So what's the kind of typical work that you do? I mean, I know it's a variety.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, I've done work on commercials, films, episodic, all that kind of stuff. But today we're really going to be looking at network promos.
Right, and I think network promos are probably the most challenging, right? Because you're given the shortest amount of time and the least amount of budget.
Yeah, they basically want a commercial quality spot in a tenth of the time, a tenth of the budget, and like no support. Mostly, hardly ever get any CG support. So it's like you have to push it through Flame, make it all happen fast. Kind of play jazz and figure it out.
Yeah, it's like we like to say it's like playing jazz. You have to be very much improvising and paying attention and listening to your client. The other thing that I love about your work is that you don't even start on with some storyboards or anything. You actually design right here in the Flame.
Yeah, exactly. Flame is my design tool. So I'm an effects artist, but I'm also a designer even more than that. So Flame is my Photoshop. So I don't really. A lot of times I bypass Photoshop designers entirely. Not every time, but I really like to just start from a blank slate and just like design freehand. With the clients interactively, and just do it all in Flame.
Yeah, and I think that's what's the fun thing about this particular demo is that you're going to take us through how you really started with very little, right?
Yeah,
in some cases, maybe just a still frame.
Yeah, exactly.
And somebody says, "Can you make something out of this?"
Yeah, just make something cool and deliver it like today, and we got to get on air tonight.
We got 2 or 3 hours, and you're going to be on the air tonight. Okay. So what do you want to start with?
Let's take a look at a quick preview clip of what we're going to be looking at. So 2 spots we'll be looking at. This is for UFC.
Which is the ultimate fighting.
Yeah, for those of you who don't watch men killing each other for sport, that's Ultimate Fighting
they
Championship.
Basically put them in a cage and let them go to town. Yeah.
And then I'm coming home. And she's home. And then another title for a show called Resurrection, as you noticed. And then a few other things where it's just using some of the Flame tools and kind of making new things from them. They weren't really intended for this, but just a quick diversion, we'll take a look at that too. So
so these are some of the techniques I was mentioning that you've developed.
Right, exactly.
So let's take a look at the ultimate fighting. So so we start out with one of the boxers on a green screen, right? So let's look at the before. Yeah. So we've got our guy. This is the boxer that needs to be in that final ad that you saw. Now, at first glance, he doesn't really look as menacing as perhaps we'd want.
Yeah, a little bit too sweet and innocent. So
basically
what I did is I just really quickly drew a really loose mesh around his key facial points.
Right, so this is an extended bicubic. You can position the points as needed.
And then you just go in and into the tracker, go backwards, analyze, and obviously, tracks really well, tracks really fast.
Right, so this is what we talk about the speed in Flame, right? I mean, that's 2 seconds later, right? You're a Flame artist. You can appreciate. You don't have to keyframe that by hand on a lot of points, right?
Right, and so the next thing you want to do is just like, give them a little bit of, attitude and kind of, a little bit of a snarl and maybe take the eyes down.
Yeah,
maybe
make them a little bit meaner.
Take this up,
we can use the magnet brush. And
use magnet, all that kind of stuff. Obviously I spent more time on this for the actual product, but
he's looking
he's looking a little weird. Okay.
Yeah.
But you get the basic idea really quick, and it just tracks. It's just perfectly tracked. You don't have to keyframe.
Done. Right.
And then if you want to adjust it on another frame, you can do that too. And it's just it's just like done.
Yeah.
So.
This is what we call about the magic of Flame, right? It's like you can imagine a producer who's never seen anything like this. They're like, "Are you kidding me? We don't have to hire a new actor? No, we'll just make this guy mean." Right.
So that was the before, and that was the after, and kind of buff him up a little bit and make him a little bit meaner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just worked beautifully and fast, and off to the races. So. The next thing, let's take a look. So if you look in the actual final spot, you see there's a lamp up in the left-hand corner.
We got this lamp up there, right? So either you shoot that practically, or you go to the CG department. Not in the case of Greg Paul.
Yeah. A, we didn't have the time. I didn't have anybody that could help me, and B, I just knew I could do it in Flame anyway. So why not?
Right.
So basically, to do that, it's actually really simple. You just draw a G-mask circle.
So these are really cool. These are G-masks.
Whoops.
But not your typical G-mask that you would think on a layer-based, where you're trying to just cut out something. These are actually G-masks that can be used inside the 3D environment, and you can actually turn them into 3D geometry. So you can extrude them. You can basically create your own little modeling tool inside of Action. So you can occlude. You have one shape, occlude another shape. So they're really powerful.
Yeah. So you can see. I mean, it's really easy. I mean, you can just do whatever you want to, and it's all interactive. And then throw a substance material light or substance texture on it. So you get whatever it is you want. Then you can since it's a procedural substance, you can change the age, you can change the how metallic it is, all that kind of stuff.
Generate it internally, make it metal.
Exactly. So you're not stuck with anything. If you want to go in and change the materials on it, it's all still live in Flame, which is really great. Yeah. So that's
then
that's
the
the
light
basics.
itself, though. Then what's in the cone of light inside that shape is another model, right?
Yeah, that's actually just a sphere.
Oh,
it's just
sphere?
a white sphere.
Okay.
So really, these are two shapes. One 3D shape, which I made in like 5 minutes, and then the other one is just a sphere.
Okay.
And then I've got object rays, moving through, so you can see how the rays occlude properly in the 3D space, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the other thing inside this 3D environment. You can generate your own lighting effects. So he's just attached a rays object, and again, the rays will go around the objects in front of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you look here, you can see there's a fence, obviously, in the foreground. And instead of using a still frame, I decided to make the fence in Flame as a 3D fence. And that way, when my light swings around, it actually picks up the light properly.
Yeah, you can see the subtleties of the light hitting the fence because it's 3D. Right, and
exactly.
Again, using the G-mask tool, right?
Yep, using the G-mask tool. And it's really simple. I mean, basically, I drew one G-mask of this line, and if you move it around, you can see that it's actually fully live. You can twist up your model, do whatever you want to.
Again, with a substance texture on it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And then replicate it.
Right. So replica node, just pop it on, make many of them, right? So
and then you've got basically a 3D shape. I think I kind of broke something in here, but you get the idea. It's in there. And
well, you can see the lighting effect hitting it better
Yeah.
there. Yeah, exactly. Now, that's all well and good.
Right.
I mean, you're getting that environment going. You're creating your own 3D environment, your own 3D models, and the lighting effects. But the guy, even though he's menacing, he's a flat 2D layer in a 3D space. There's no way for him to really benefit from the lighting effect, if you will.
Right.
I mean, it's just going to basically just go around him, if you will. So you came up with a new technique, and this is really, I got some Flame artists, friends of mine from Germany here.
Awesome. Welcome.
Yeah. And I think they're going to like this. They're going to dig this.
Okay, so this is really cool. In my opinion, this is like a really big deal.
This is a big deal. This is going to change some things for you.
It changes things for me a lot because I do a lot of work where I really just take footage and take it in a completely different direction. I think footage is just an idea.
Yeah,
it's a suggestion.
Footage is a suggestion.
It's just a starting point. So if you look here, look on the right side, and you see when I'm moving the light around, it's actually properly picking up the shading on the guy. It's actually, if you look at the shadows moving around his eyes, this is giving basically 3D lighting in action in the 3D space.
Onto a 2D image.
Onto a 2D image, and there's no modeling.
So how do you do that?
Funny you ask. Okay, so if you look in actually, let me just show in the final thing here. Yeah, look at the eyes, the shadow around his eyes. That's all
coming. Goes around
coming.
his nose. It's the light's crossing and casting a shadow on his nose, right? But it's a flat surface.
It's a flat surface. So basically, Miles S. Miller is another Flame artist in LA, and he developed this for me. I kind of prodded the Matchbox user developers to
Matchbox.
Yes, to I wanted normals from footage, so I can relight footage like you're relighting CG. But I wanted real-time from footage, and he basically just did it.
Right.
And look how slow it is.
There's a Matchbox.
I mean, it's real time.
It's real-time match. So take any 2D image, run it through this Matchbox, generate a normals, and now you can light it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of nods from my Flame friends.
Am I right? I mean, that's to
pretty
me, that's pretty
wicked.
freaking cool.
So it opens the door to a lot of really cool lighting and look development inside of Action with 2D footage. And that's what GP is doing here.
Yeah. So it just really gives me a lot of latitude to. I mean, maybe your shot needs something less severe and stylized. Obviously, this is a very stylized spot. But I did a couple of examples here. Where you have,
show us the other ones because these are wicked. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we got some Art Beats stuff we got from the Art Beats folks. Thank you to them.
So this is a more subtle thing, but if you look at the shadows around her nose, they're moving properly with the light. So maybe it's that the DP didn't quite nail it exactly the way we want it. Maybe you need some style on it. Maybe you want to liven up the footage with some moving lights. Whatever it is, you basically you're relighting footage as if more or less you're like on the set.
This one really is effective.
Yeah. Now look at the shadows moving around his neck, around his nose. I mean, this is pretty crazy,
So I'll give Greg Paul's email address out at the end of the presentation so you can get access to this.
No, really, anybody who wants this, contact me. It's an unreleased alpha right now, Matchbox, but I'll put you in touch with the developer.
Aren't you glad you came today?
Yeah.
And by the way, the Flame Award event is tonight at 6 o'clock. Come by, have a beer with us, a glass of champagne, and Greg Paul will be doing another demonstration quickie there, but it's going to be a lot of fun. This one's also really cool.
Yeah, this is my dear mother, and
she looks great. She's holding up good.
Look at the creases kind of around her mouth. I mean, the shadows are moving properly with the light.
This thing is amazing.
And not the most interesting footage here, but just to show that this works on objects too. It's picking up all the proper shading on that too. So
all right, see,
pretty darn cool.
He's calling home to tell him about this. All right, so let's move on to the next example.
All right, cool. So the next.
This is the standoff shot.
Yes, thank you. So let's load that up. So this is the second shot in the 3 shots for the UFC. And I might mention, we were talking about tight deadlines. When I did these 3 shots, from the time of concept to design to delivery, it was 16 hours.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Now, I added a couple of things for this demo because I wanted to show like the 3D fence and the 3D lamp and the relighting, but everything else is 16 hours. It's like you really got to move fast. No time to mess around.
And that's when Flame really shines,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You're able to just knock things out. You got the speed, the interactivity, all the tools.
Yeah.
You got it's basically everything you need in one box.
Yeah, exactly. So, in this case, what's nice about this is that, I mean, this is a lot simpler when it comes to the relighting. There's really a lot of keys, color corrections and stuff like that. We're kind of going for a graphic novel kind of Frank Miller kind of feel,
Sin City feel.
Yeah, and a lot of what we do isn't necessarily always about pixel perfect comps. It's about more evocative material than it is literal. Yeah, exactly. So just kind of setting a mood. But what's cool is, you have this in action and it's all in a 3D world. So, if you want to move your camera around, it's all live there, and the flare on the side is occluding properly with the 3D fence and all that kind of stuff. So it was just really, really flexible. And I had clients in the room with me doing a lot, with a lot of this, and we just got to move really fast and try a lot of different styles really fast.
Well, I think also for the audience to appreciate the guy in the back, let's take a quick look at the original footage of that.
Right. Yeah. So another case of getting footage that was not shot for this purpose. So that was the guy.
That's what he started with. Right,
some guy walking in a gym with a moving camera,
so
okay.
He took it to a completely different place, but it has that feeling, right? And again, the lighting, the 3D elements, the normal map, all these things are allowing him to really have total control over that environment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the case with a lot of things. And the other element was this still frame from stock footage, And so take these things, do a little puppeting on the guy in the foreground to give him a little movement in his legs, and there you go. So that was really fun to make. I mean, really intense over 16 hours.
But it's a great. I like the way you use your imagination to combine things that really weren't meant to go together.
I just throw a lot of mud on the wall and see what sticks. Okay, so the next one. So this was the final shot.
Yeah.
And so for this one, let me pull up this right here. So. Again, we're using the same 3D shape from the first 2 shots, but this time we have the pillar in the foreground. That's from what they call the octagon in UFC. So that's moving by all in 3D space, and you got your logo that comes in, yada yada yada. This actually isn't the final render, but
in broadcast graphics design, this comes up all the time, right? You got to get that logo in there.
Yeah.
And the new support for the SVG is fantastic.
Very helpful because you basically have your vector art straight from Illustrator.
Right.
And so your logo just comes in, and then you can do things like if you want to rotate it around, if you want to give it different bevels and stuff. I mean, it's great. And then, add a substance texture to it. With the substance texture, obviously, you can do things like, mess with the corrosion and the age and things like that. So it's always live, and we can always keep tweaking.
So from Illustrator, you can output an SVG file, import that directly into Action, extrude it, bevel it, add substance textures. So it's great.
What was great here, too, is that, obviously their element was not shot for this, and so, but I was still able to get a really, really good 3D track from these guys over white. Like they weren't even.
Really? Okay.
There were no trackers. They weren't even shot on green. I don't know what they were shot for,
but you just ran it through the 3D
tracker, and it just nailed it. And basically, you can see the points there, the point cloud. That gave me a 3D camera, and then it allowed me to put my logo and fence and all that kind of stuff in 3D space. So that was really helpful. The other thing I used a lot was particles in this, and I'm a pretty big fan of flame particles, and even just the presets are pretty darn good. I color corrected this up so you can see it better, but this basically, these are the particles I used for the shot, and I plugged in some defaults, tweaked them a little bit, and it just kind of worked. So
yeah, and you made them very subtle, which I like. So but it's those details that go a long way.
Yeah, it's 1,001 subtleties that we do that try to make things look good. So that really helps. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. And then there was also the timeline that we wanted to talk about too, right?
Yeah, I wanted to show
because
that.
It's one thing to be able to generate individual shots, but again, this guy's a little bit of a control freak. He doesn't want to give them to someone else to decide how they should go together in an editorial way. So he does everything around his timeline. And I know how much you love the timeline. You really do. And so it's an important part of storytelling, right? So now he's got his elements, and he can put them together. He can trim them. He can decide when to get in and out of them, do some interesting transitions as well.
So in this case, and this actually isn't the final timeline I had with my clients. It was actually a lot thicker. I had a lot of stuff stacked. But in this case, we looked at it and we realized, some of the shots didn't match colors. So we did really quick, color balancing, things like that. But what really helps is, a lot of times I hear, make the logo clearer, and I probably hear that, 3 times a day. I'm sure we all have, right? So what's great about this is I typically generate a normals map of any 3D that I create in Action.
Coming out of your Action.
Coming out of Action. So this is normals created from Action. And then what that allows me to do is, without having to go back in and even do, much less go to CG, without even having to go back into Action, I can go in and do some relighting. So, the original plate was like that, a little bit bland, not really popping out. You add a 3D light, and it's actually picking up all the proper, bevels and the little corrosion and stuff from the substance material. So that was really nice, just to have that flexibility. The other thing I do a lot in my final kind of passes in the timeline is exposure pops and going in and out of black. I don't really believe
this was when I really learned something from him on it, because normally I'm used to the editorial mindset. Somebody wants to dip to black or white.
I don't believe in that.
Exposure node for that.
Yeah, I don't believe in dipping to black using a black frame.
He's got that photography mindset, right?
Yeah, using a black frame and just mixing in the black, that looks like an 80s switcher effect, and I can't stand it. So I use the exposure node, which actually uses f-stops. So I want to go down a stop, go down 2 stops, whatever. And what it does is it properly goes down so that you're not just mixing black in, the brightest thing in the scene, and because we're in floating point, it has all the data in there, which is awesome. And it just makes it look more like a photographic shot or a photographic effect than just like a switcher. So
that's another cool takeaway, a little trick around use exposure in a different way.
Yeah, so big fan of that.
Speaking of what we like to think of as hijacking tools,
yes,
or using a tool that was designed for one purpose, taking it and using it for something else.
Right.
I love the way you do that. So maybe we want to move on. Yeah, this is a beautiful piece. Again, show them what you started with.
Yeah, sure. So the source material, where are we?
And we'll play the final at the end and everything.
Yeah.
But
the source material was 1 frame of stock image.
Just stock footage.
Just stock footage, 1 frame. And basically, we need to make a really cool title really fast. Just do something, make it, So, obviously I did all the animation in Flame and Action, put everything in 3D space. That was all easy stuff. Turned the water drop into a 3D object, gave it some kind of physical deformations. It's got reflections in there, all that kind of stuff. But the other thing I did, and this is kind of subtle, but if you look in here, you can see this dust that's moving through. So that's not a dust element. I made that from scratch, and it's not particles either. So this is using position maps.
Yeah, another cool trick. Again, on top of that, take a position map. Well, this isn't really what it's supposed to be used for. and this guy's making star fields out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And dust.
I just started experimenting with it. And one of the things with Flame is so great is you can just take something as intended as one tool and then just mess with it and hijack and see where else it goes. And I found a lot of cool stuff. So the atmosphere is cool because it's real time, basically. I mean, when you have a million particles, and that's playing back from action. When you have a million particles, it's going to slow down the system on any system you're on. They'll further you go on your animation. With position maps, it doesn't, and it just plays. So that's cool, but it also allows you to do other things like, where do we have it here? Is it here?
The bokeh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Starfield, obviously very similar effect there, but then grass, which can turn into hair pretty quickly, or
this
fur.
is all generated inside action.
Yeah, and this is undeveloped. I was just playing around and seeing what happened if I just, try this and that. Something kind of approximating fluid sims, which, by the way, are pretty much real time, which I am not unhappy about. I can't even tell you what this is. It's like Trash Bag Armada. I have no idea. But I was really just experimenting, seeing what would happen if I threw this up and had it, to see where it went. So it's some pretty cool stuff, and I've only barely scratched the surface of it. But it could be kind of cool to,
the quality is very nice.
The last thing I'll show on this is in the spot, you have all these kind of nice bokeh effects in the foreground. Let me put this back here. You have these nice kind of bokeh optical effects in the foreground, which I'm a big fan of using whenever I can because they're pretty. But I didn't have an element that I really liked, and so I made them from scratch in Flame. And let me just show you. Basically, again, using particles in Flame, I used a preset which was snow.
Right.
And so I took the snow particles. You can see them there in the frame.
So they're intended to be used in snow scenes.
Right.
But you took them as a source element.
Yeah, exactly. Flipped them upside down, put them in the 3D scene, and what's great is they're actually occluding properly with everything else in the scene.
Right.
And the other bokeh elements I found on, that we had in stock and stuff, it just wasn't cutting it for me. So I've got this element, right? And you basically just do a little tweak to it and then run it through Sapphire Defocus, and you've got bokehs. And let me brighten this up just a little bit so you can see a little bit better. And it's a pretty decent optical bokeh effect, And then and then the final comp, it works pretty well, and I've actually stolen that and used it for a few things now.
Yeah, and so with those little dust elements from the position maps and taking the particles and turning them into bokeh effects, I mean, all this is sort of layering up and adding to the realism of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings it to life, right? It's
really
exactly. Beautiful.
So,
Why don't we play them back again? Yeah, let's play back both of these examples. I think they're really strong. And again, remember, he started with very little, relied on his imagination and then his knowledge of Flame, and went to town.
Hold on one second.
Maybe we're not cooperating with you at the moment.
We are not.
Okay, so we will skip that. Oh wait, here we go.
Okay, I'm sure that was my fault. Okay, my fault again. I'll take the blame on this.
We're pulling you down in the background. Somebody's probably
somebody's doing something because this doesn't normally happen.
With our KVM.
Well, sorry for the anticlimax on that.
It's okay. Well, it'll be much better at 6 o'clock. I promise.
Yes, please come back.
Oh, are you actually?
No,
it's just doing its own thing.
Yeah,
all right. So with that, big round of applause for Greg Paul Malone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming all this way from Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
On a very long flight, but it was great. And
cool.
Again, Greg Paul will be back tonight at 6 o'clock for the Flame Award event, where you're going to do a demo, which is actually resurrecting an old challenge that we had in 1997. You probably remember it, which was called Make Something from One Frame of White. So the One Frame of White contest, this guy won that recently in the States, and he's going to show us the winning elements and how he put it together. So I think it's worth coming back for more tricks to see.
Yep, for sure.
And that's
Tell your friends. Yep.
So anyway, we'll re-rack the reel. We'll be right back with another presentation. This time it's going to be actually Shotgun and Flame. So you might want to see that as well. So stick around. Thanks a lot. And go to the info desk. She's so bored, she keeps coming to me and saying, send someone over to talk to me. All right, have a great show.